Now that you've chosen something for your case study to learn and narrowed it down into a viable learning objective using action verbs, you want to explore how you will actually measure that action verb. So in this assignment, you're going to continue developing your lesson plan by determining and creating a formal assessment that will measure your case study's learning for the benchmark that you've set. So step one is very, very important. You need to identify the action verb. And what that means, it's a type of behavior that you can actually see that will demonstrate the understanding underlying your case study's brain. A common mistake is to use the action verb of understand. And the reason why you can't do that, unless you're psychic, you'll never be able to see inside your case study's mind. So you can only choose an action verb that you can see. So we used, as we explained last time, action verbs from Bloom's taxonomy. And what this does is indirectly measures the student's different levels of understanding. So for example, if we look at this sentence, write in a variety of grade appropriate formats for a variety of purposes and audience, the action that's being done here is write. We can see writing, and thus it's a viable learning objective. Same with read aloud and explain. It's only when the words we can't see the action is when it's not any good. In step two, after you've identified the action verb, we need to find an assessment that's going to be the best measure or the way to get the best evidence of that action verb. So if we ask the action verb to write, then we would expect the assessment to involve writing. It would not involve speaking or doing, because those do not give you a good idea of whether they can write. So you'll want to examine some different types of assessments that you might use to match your action verb. Here's a common mistake that teachers make. Because the action verb involves maybe more complicated behaviors, something like a multiple choice test does not really give us good evidence of the benchmark and should not be used. So you need to be very careful about what kind of assessments you use to make sure that they do measure what you want them to measure. So if we're going to choose ability to write in a variety of formats, a portfolio might be a good way to go, because it will display different types of writing that you do over the course of the assignment. You can disagree, and that's part of being a teacher, but again, if you can argue that your assessment gives you plenty of evidence that the action verb is being learned, then you go ahead and use that assessment. Now, to get an idea of what it's going to look like, we need you to create a sample of the actual assessment, which you can use as a separate attachment if it's too large. So if you're going to do a multiple choice test, and you should, after what I just said about multiple choice tests, if it is something that requires something like an action verb of identify, then a multiple choice test is completely appropriate for measuring that type of action verb. So you'd want to maybe choose 5 selected response questions. If you're doing an essay, 1 constructive response question, and portfolio and etc., so that we can get an idea of what you're looking at. And then you also want to provide the answer key. One of the things that you might use is what's called the rubric. The rubric is used for a type of action behavior that requires quite a bit of criteria, or is complex in some way, so that you can have a chance to measure those different criteria. So I would definitely go to the text to develop a rubric, or go to various websites like Rubistar to help you generate rubrics. There's a lot of them. Then finally, to answer 5 questions that educational psychologists feel is very important to understand about assessments. So you'll go through these 5 questions, and there are text resources for you to use. And then in step 6, you're going to place your one assessment that you create in your 5 answers into the DOE standards-based lesson plan you started last section, and fill out section D. And the section C will be completed after part 2. And you can see a couple of examples of how to do that, including the non-academic sample. And then save it in a safe place, and then you'll put that together with your instruction in the next section, and then that's what you'll turn in.